What if Enel was born in the blue sea and not the white sea on Barica? Yes, this is going to be an interesting video because, keep it a sec, as of late, you'll be seeing some very interesting content, particularly with one swing, whoa, caught everyone's attention, and a huge Titan class bolt of lightning severed the sky asunder, as if Zeus himself touched down onto this plane of existence. But it got me thinking, hold on, yo, damn, compared to my boy, the god of lightning himself, Enel, in the One Piece verse, how good is that? And then from there, it got me thinking, hold on, yo, Enel in the blue sea would be a whole different sort of beast. And then you see the train of thought here, right? That's how we branch out into what if Enel was born in the blue sea. And obviously doing an Enel video for me, mwah,
Lovely.
it's like eating a perfect chopped cheese. You can't go wrong with it. They have every ingredient down to a science. They even use Wagyu beef. It is delicious no matter how you slice it. Enel is my favorite One Piece character. It's not Sanji, it's not Shanks or Blackbeard or Luffy, it's Lightning God Enel. The King of Lightning name stems from Enel himself. And honestly, to be fair, Skypiea is one of the best arcs to this day in One Piece. If you skipped it, you're a heathen. You know you are. No need to be shy about it or scurry in the corner. You know who you are. Say with your chest so we can smite you for your transgressions. El Thor. But I figure, okay, we can talk about this in terms of the power scale, which we will. But I do want to tackle how Enel would work in a what-if scenario if he was born in the blue sea instead of the white sea on Barica, the island that was south of Skypiea, before he himself annihilated it and then went to Skypiea with his bleached version of the Royal Guard, which were nowhere near as cool, but for the time, at that point in time, pretty effective. The idea, though, is Enel in the blue sea would, I think, shape a lot of the world if he was born in this location. Way more of the world than you would expect. And that is the magnitude, the majesty of the character. Enel, if he was born in the blue sea, would be way more of a prominent figure in the story than he is right now. Right now, Enel fanboys and fangirls like myself, we're hoping, we're praying that one day Oda will take us to the moon. We will go to fairyverse. And it's, we're getting so desperate now that some of us are willing to accept the not so good hand-me-down version, which is, okay, Enel maybe will come to the planet. He'll come down from the moon. He'll leave fairyverse. Yeah, oh my God, I'm so excited. No, we need to go to the moon. We need to see what's going on up there in space. There's too many good things for lore particularly that are damn too juicy. Will Oda ever do that? That is the problem. So we definitely want Enel back in the story, and his cover story is still a very prominent cover story as of late. The planet's quote-unquote name that was said in the Enel cover story was also confirmed in SBS 1111 to be the actual planet's name. But again, quote-unquote, because, well, I don't get into it now. Watching videos that they will hear on SBS. Now, let's dive into this what if. If Enel was born in the blue sea, let's just assume, for argument's sake here, that his mentality would be the same here, because it's hard to say whether he's born in a rich country, in a poor country, or a government nation, or non-world government nation, east, west, north, south, Grand Line, New World. A lot of these things are going to shape his mindset. But at the same time, you can argue that his megalomania, right? His insane egotistical worldview would still be consistent even though he's born, let's say, in a very weak blue, the weakest blue, let's say the East Blue, let's say in the Goa Kingdom, in the trash heap area, even in that situation, he would still be an egomaniac, ultimately speaking, and believe himself to be chosen worthy of the title of God. This brings up a question as to, we don't necessarily know what was going on exactly in his upbringing, but my guess here is that because he has this God complex, I think he was probably very gifted. Think of Bakugo episode 1 of My Hero Academia, where he's very talented, has a very powerful quirk, and for the future, nothing shy of being the #1 hero is going to suffice. His physique or his talents or his insights were very, very sharp, very keen at an early age, and that was something that was very obvious to many people. So he'd be essentially the genius sort. Think of, let's say, Sasuke without all that trauma and baggage. Very likely, I'm assuming Anno had, a mother and father, like any normal person else. He was born in a very unique way, inundated by on high. Okay, but until we know the facts, my guess here is that Enel probably had genius talent. And because of his talents, he saw himself to be superior than other folks around him. So I would argue that no matter what situation he's in, he would still thrive above most of his peers at a very early age. Absolutely. And then part of the evidence too, I would argue, with his talents, that's why he was thriving so much, is the fact that when it comes to his skills, he is to this day, he is one of the best people in the entire story for the observation hockey. There are some folks that are very clearly naturally gifted with certain hockey affinities. And I think Enel was probably very gifted off the gate with observation hockey. Made him very perceptive at a very young age, very likely, and that only enhanced his gifts and therefore his superiority complex. That complex has to come from somewhere, and over the course of time, again, his childhood was probably such that he was so much better than all those around him. He became very arrogant, very cocky, and that was never really in check. And as a result, what he probably strived for was a power that would match his egomania, and that would be the lightning ability. Lightning in many mythologies is associated with like top-end gods. Think of Zeus, think of Thor. Lightning itself is akin to one of the strongest, if not the strongest element in the world. When you think about ancient times, people would associate lightning strikes and thunder with the gods themselves and their furious anger and their almighty, where they could just come down and destroy an entire forest with a single bolt of lightning, or a tree. Someone could die just like that. And that is the whims of the gods, because the gods were angry at that person for X, Y, and Z reason. And I feel like in that same way, the ability of lightning complements the egomania of Enel very, very strongly. So Enel probably at a very young age sought a devil fruit, a power that would be most suitable for his one above all status, and the power that is most akin with the wrath of the heavens, particularly a Logia ability, which is commonly known to be the strongest kind of ability, that would absolutely be on Enel's radar. In the same way that Sanji wanted the invisibility power for wholesome reasons, Enel would want the lightning ability for very humble reasons. And I would say in a what if scenario, he would be not only very attuned to hockey, and depending on where he grows up, he may or may not know what hockey is, but I feel like no matter what, he would always strive for observation, and he would definitely have Conqueror's hockey if he was born in the Blue Sea. He may actually have it at this point in time, and he is fit for Conqueror's hockey. That I think is very, yes. When it comes to an early upbringing, he's probably born with Conqueror's hockey in the same vein as many characters we see. Now, whether or not you actually can attain it in the future, if you weren't born with it, I'm not sure that's the case or not. But I would say he probably would be born with it, because he absolutely has the desire to rule, to be a king. He wants to actually ascend that. He's like a Super Saiyan 2, beyond a Super Saiyan, and he wants to be a god, damn near. But I would still say that he would still gravitate towards observation, Conquerors, and then arm hockey, let's say, be his weakest hockey group. But he would also want a power that would supplement his egomania, and the lightning power, based on a lot of mythology, based on a lot of lore, would fit that very, very nicely. More so than I think most other Logia abilities outside of the Yami Yami no Mi. It works so well Enel no matter what. And because of that, we can now go, let's say, from his upbringing in his early ages. What is Enel going to do once he gets to a certain point? His ambitions, his goals, will they still be fairy verse in the moon? My guess here, it's my guess, we don't necessarily know, because again, Bricken was destroyed, and as far as we know, not many other Brickens talk about their home country and their culture. We don't see Uroge talk about that, or any other sort of Brickens that we see in the story. Why is fairy verse so important to Enel? I'm guessing because in his country, they talked about Fairyverse being the land of the gods. It's a place where gods used to exist way back when, which ties, I think, to the ancient history of the Shandians, Skypians, and Brickans, where they used to live in that area. So in the same way that some folks viewed the winged races of the Lunarians living on the red line to be a land of gods, I think it's in the same vein as the people of the Sky Islands viewing the moon as a land of gods. And because of Enel's natural talents and gifts, him being the honored one, like he's Gojo Satoru, I alone am the honored one, and I don't value human lives the same way because I am clearly not just a human. I'm clearly way beyond human, given my gifts and talents and so on. I think that he wanted to live in the land of the gods because culturally they viewed that moon to be the land of the gods. And I say that moon because maybe there's other moons out there, Oda, you know, the globe, but I digress. If you take Enel and put him in the blue sea, what is the thing that he's gonna probably vie for the most? The highest positions he can possibly achieve in the world, or what is akin to a god in the One Piece world. And what is that? Across most of the known world in One Piece, what do most people across the planet associate the closest thing to godhood is? The Gorosei. The five elders. The five elders are the highest authority in the world. There have been various mentions of them being deemed to be gods by random Marines, regular civilians. They view them as a higher power in some respects. And we even have Kaido in his flashback in chapter 1049 in his home country of the Vodka Kingdom that was actually going to war, fighting on a regular basis just to pay the absurdly high tax rates of the Holy Land. Their whole country had to pull a Candace Everdeen to volunteer themselves for the heavenly tributes. And he, Kaido, said at a point in time, why does everyone bother to obey the celestial dragons anyway? I think that exact same mindset is what Enel is going to have. Well, not the exact same mindset. I'll add on a few more rare candies and level that up because for Enel it's going to be more extreme. Why should I, as a citizen of the Blue Sea, whether it be in the Grand Line or the East, West, North, South, why should I be in any way subservient to the Celestial Dragons and the Elders? Now, if you're born in the New World, it's a bit different there, particularly depending on which country you're born in the New World exactly. I think that in the New World, they may not necessarily view the highest authorities in the same vein, only because in the New World, we know that the Yonko run the show. The Emperors of the Sea are the highest authority in the New World. The world government does not have the same power in the New World as they do in the Grand Line and the other Blues. You can argue that in the same way as his home country of Bricka, where there was a lot of culture and there was a lot of, let's say, lore and stories about the land of gods being on the moon, therefore he wanted to be and live on the moon where he felt was rightfully his spot in the land of gods. There would be some changes there in the New World, where in the New World, if he, let's say, viewed the emperors to be the highest authority, then he'd also want to be emperor of the sea himself. Or potentially, we even go some further and say, if he was born in the New World, he may want to be king of the pirates or the god of the pirates, let's say more akin to Rox D. Sebek, where Sebek wanted to be the ruler of the world. So Enel would be another version of Rox. And you could argue in the Grand Line and in the other Blues, he wants to aim for, let's say, being the highest authority of the world government. And as a result, what's commonly known as the Five Elders, the quote unquote highest authority of the planet. But in this what if, because the New World is a smaller part of their world compared to the other parts of the world, it's more likely that he would aim to be the highest authority possible in the government. But there's a problem with that. Being born in the Blue Sea doesn't necessarily mean he's born on the Red Line. Matter of fact, even folks on the Red Line like to separate themselves from being members of the Blue Sea. That's why these celestial dragons view themselves as gods, wear the damn astronaut suits, and so on and so forth. For argument's sake, if Enel was born on the red line, obviously he would aim to be a member of the elders. And if he were to get to that point and he found out about Emu's existence, then he would absolutely vie for Emu's position on the true throne. However, I think we have to have a stopgap there. We just can't upscale Enel and give him everything he wants. And his stopping point, where he stops, would probably be Holy Knight. I don't see him going as far as actually being a 5 elder. He's already born a celestial dragon, but he wants more, and there's a good chance that he may not know about Emu. So in the future, he, let's say, could be commander of the Holy Knights in the same spot as, let's say, Garling. I'm sorry, that's Shamrock. Supreme commander. So he could wind up there when he's older, but in this scenario, in this timeline, Monkey D. Luffy and Monkey D. Dragon are alive. So we know in the near future, they're gonna take down that whole system. So in this spot, he'd probably be a Holy Knight. That's my guess here. He'd be a Holy Knight of the Holy Land. And I think this only works if Enel is born on the Holy Land, because even though we know that some folks can become celestial dragons and holy knights, they can be celestial dragons, but they probably can't be saints. And because of that, that's gonna cap a lot of the growth and authority that Enel could get in the Holy Land compared to, let's say, other parts of the Blue Sea. So I think that Enel would not become a member of the Holy Knights if he also knows that he's not allowed the rights of sainthood like natural born members of the Holy Land. And in the New World, when I think about it, it does get a bit tricky as to whether or not Enel would actually lead a crew or not. We do see Enel lead these automata, these soldiers on the moon, and they view him as their leader, but only because the man's a spastic and he actually attacked them first, which only wound up helping them because they're damn robots. Enel had no intention of really being the leader that he is now on the moon. It's only because he attacks first and asks questions later. It's just straight memes. But at the same time, Enel's a pretty bad leader in terms of he doesn't really care at all about his subordinates. He will let them be mowed down and die. We even saw during Skypiea when he took out Kamakiri after he was yelling, "Niero! Wiper!" We saw him take out not only Kamakiri, but the lightning traveled across the Cloud Road, and it took out many of his own henchmen. And he did not give a damn. Matter of fact, even the game that I was playing in the first place was going to snuff out, just innately, it was going to snuff out most of his henchmen outside of his own commanders. So the idea is that he could probably lead a pirate crew, and they would aim to be obviously an emperor's crew. He would subjugate land. How far did he get in the face of Big Mom and Kaido and shit? I mean, oof. In this timeline, at this stopping point, he probably wouldn't get to that spot, but he will still try and vie for that. So you can argue that he, let's say, could try and lead a country or two, let's say one nation, in the same vein as Wano country, in the same vein as Elbaf, where it would be a independent nation. That's very possible. And given his nature, because he likes to lord over people, you argue, let's say, a Sky Island. So he winds up, let's say, running a Sky Island somewhere in the New World. Very possible. But the idea is that because of these massive stopgaps of the emperors and his own leadership skills or lack thereof, and how he leads in the first place, there are going to be hurdles that he just can't overcome. Hurdles that are going to stop him from being an emperor of the sea and or the next coming, the successful version of Rox D. Sebek. Even though he is a leader and he did lead Skypiea for a very, very long time, it's done so under fear and duress. Even Kaido seemed to have a lot of guys that really respected him, and it wasn't the same kind of respect that you got from Enel and his boys. Enel's boys almost had like a sort of religious fear about the whole situation, and things were fated to happen in some sense, and they saw happen firsthand where Enel destroyed an entire country and he had the power to back up his claim to godhood. That's more akin to, let's say, Big Mom, where Big Mom is clearly someone that rules with predominantly fear on top of all things else. Fear first and foremost. But remember that with Big Mom, most of her subordinates that are top end officers are also her children. So there is a blood connection that she has with her crew that Enel will not have with his crew unless he's on that Middle Eastern mindset, grind set, 15 wives, and he's popping out kids like crazy. Unless he's doing something like that, there is a good chance that the strong ties that Big Mom has with her crew, even though they fear her undeniably, blood being thicker than oil and water won't exist here. So him actually amassing a large following, I think is gonna be hard for him. Therefore, his only option could be to join a pirate crew and then try and be ultimately the leader of that crew, which he will fail ultimately because given a stop point, I don't see him ever superseding Big Mom or Shanks or Kaido or Whitebeard and so on and so forth. He'll be the strongest commander of that crew. I think that's going to be guaranteed, like for sure. But I don't see him ever replacing the head, the captain, the central of the crew. So I would say be a commander of that crew, but he'd be in the same vein as someone like Who's Who. Who's Who and Sasaki, they did want to take down King, Queen, or Jack, the lead performers, because they wanted to be in that roles. So in the same vein, he's going to be headhunting his captain for sure, but they might be cool with that. They might be cool with that. So Enel in the New World gets tricked. Back to the Blue Sea in general, I do see him join the Marines, but not because he actually wants to help people, but he wants to lord and rule over people. So there'd be like 3 options there, like 3 routes, like it's Fate Stay Night. You have either like Saber, you have Tosaka Rin, or you have Mato. Saber is the Holy Land route. Rin is the New World pirate route. And finally, now we have Mato, the Marine route. The Marines have a massive amount of authority across the most of the known world. Massive amount of authority. And that authority, in some ways, especially when it's abused, is in lockstep with Enel's jib. Absolutely it is, undeniably. He has a god complex, and him commanding Marines and other nations and their citizens and so on, Enel is going to love that authority. He's going to hate the fact that there can be folks above him, absolutely, but he will salivate over that authority. And I think that Enel is gonna be aiming for the highest spot possible in the Marines, Fleet Admiral, Akainu's position, and in this situation, I think his stopgap would be Admiral Enel, and he would be a savage. He would be Green Bull Square. He would have his own sense of justice, superior justice. Yes, oh absolutely. I'm telling you, my boy's about to be an absolute demon on the seas. He would take every possible chance to smite those that are deemed unworthy. He would lord over so many Marines in an unhealthy way. But ultimately, his stopgap would probably be there as Admiral. He would probably try to aim to be Fleet Admiral so he can rule over all the Marines, and would make attempts, I think, to isolate, separate how the Marines function, operate from the influence of the Holy Land, so the Holy Land has less influence over the Marines, which only gives him, Fleet Admiral, in this situation, more power over the Marines. Probably failing, but I think that's what he would try to do, because he'd want to lord over the Marines as the sole entity, god, savior dude, because his upbringing will kind of push him in that direction. That's what I think, personally speaking. And you can argue, well, okay, he'll try to, let's say, build his own military force, his own military might. As an independent, he's not gonna go Democrat or Republican, he'll be independent. But I think that for his god complex, one nation is just too damn small. I'm keeping a stack. One nation is too damn small. He wants the world. All right, he wants to lord over the whole world as God. He wants to be in the same spot as Emu, essentially. Will he actually get there? No, but I can definitely see him getting to a pretty high spot. And for him, it may get so bad to where, for example, in the same way that his dream was to go to Fairyverse in the actual canon manga, in this what if scenario, if he finds out that the land of the gods used to be the red line, on top of the red line, he may try and have a sort of separate marine faction or trilene marines against the Holy Land themselves in order to take control and rule over the land of the gods. And so the red line is now his fairy verse. So it could be like a whole Film Z situation where in Film Z you have the Neo Marines that follow Zephyr Sensei. You could have Enel do something similar there too. People that follow the same motto of the superior justice, the justice of like-minded egomaniacs like Enel that deem the land of gods to be location fit for people of their ilk. But it stems from what? The Marines. And then finally, to wrap up this what if, the power scale of things is simple. If Enel is born in the Blue Sea, he has knowledge of things that were ultimately his undoing in Skypiea. Bricka was easy because Bricka, there was no one that could really counter what he was doing. But of course, in Sky Island, Luffy, Rubber, and in the Blue Sea, in the higher tiers, you have Haki, Armor Haki particularly. But you have to remember this fact. Enel was already so gifted, he was so skilled, that he was the first person in the story to combine his Haki with his Devil Fruit power. Keep that in mind. He is the first person we have seen in the story of One Piece to combine observation Haki and his lightning powers to the point where he could hear what everyone was saying in the white and white seas by combining with what he sensed, which is a massive area that he was sensing on a regular basis, on a constant basis, almost like Kataku at the future sites. He was doing that on a much more regular basis, like Rayleigh on Ruskaina, but all the damn time. And then combining that with his ability to actually perceive the sound waves when someone uttered something, he could pick that up with his powers. So when folks say that Enel has no Haki, that's cap. He has some of the best Haki in the game. The issue is his armament Haki. That's the issue. He lacks that. But if he's in the Blue Sea, and like I said before, he already has the ambitions of a king. He wants to be him. He'd be one of the few top tier Marines to have conqueror's Haki. On God, yeah, on God, Enel. I promise you, he would. But armament Haki won't be an issue for Enel to learn at all because he already has an innate skill to learn Haki at a very high level. Maybe not the strongest, but he have, let's say, hardening, and he's found that hardening, OD observation, and conqueror's Haki. Maybe let's say infusion, but he can knock out some guys here and there. Okay, fine. He said. Because all he needs really are these things to augment his power, the Goro Goro no Mi. The Goro Goro no Mi is going to be busted in the Blue Sea, particularly in the Blue Sea. Remember this. Why did he build Arc Maxim? One, obviously, to get to the moon. Duh. But two, is that Enel, he somehow knew the Arc Maxim blueprints and so on, probably ties to ancient history, because we see in the mural now that there is an Arc Maxim that's there. The key thing here is that in those areas, 10,000 meters above sea level, storm clouds are normally too dense to exist on that high of an elevation. And that's why he had number 3 from Arc Maxim, Death Pia. Death Pia is when he has that big black storm cloud, which he's allowed to manipulate on a way more regular basis with his abilities because he himself is the lightning. And that's an important thing because if Enel has access to more storm clouds in the environment around him, or let's say he can make them more frequently by superheating the air around him, like in the same way that Sasuke does in Naruto, and he's able to actually form lightning clouds, and he's plasma, he can easily do that, it's not a problem at all. I want you to imagine the Rygos, his kingdom come. This is my kingdom come. I want you to imagine that on repeat, over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. There are some parts of the world that Enel would literally be the sky itself. He would supersede Big Mom in orders of magnitude, because he could control the thunderclouds in a whole area. In the same vein, I'd argue that Kuzan, environmentally, is so damn devastating because he can freeze so much of the ocean water. We saw him freeze the ocean between two islands in Long Ring Long Land. In the same vein, he can do something like that with his AoE. Enel can do the same thing in areas that are highly dense with storm clouds, and there are so many in the blue sea. It is ridiculous. In the new world, dude, in the new world, some of these storms are bonkers. They are nuts. Around Wano country is particularly insane. I want you to imagine Raigo's on that scale. He's basically an angel weapon. Dog, Enel would be a tremendous force of nature, way more so than Kizaru, definitely, way more so than Akainu, way more so, maybe not way more so, but you could argue more so than even Kuzan. He would be the ultimate force of nature in the One Piece world, particularly in areas that are definitely cloud dense. And honestly, when I say this, I mean this earnestly too. Because Homeboy has already proven his skills with his powers in the actual canon story, in this what if scenario, Enel might be an awakened Logia, and if the awakening Logia is in the same effect that we see with Punk Hazard, with one side being Ice Mountain, glaciers, a constant blizzard, and so on from at the time Aokiji, and then the other side, Akainu, with the volcanic mountain ranges and the falling ash and the sea on fire, then imagine Raijin Island. We saw on the island that Uroj went to before the time skip when he entered the new world, a place that had non-stop lightning bolts raining down on it. What we see in the Odin flashback too, bro, that, but on a scale probably a few times bigger. That is terrifying. Now obviously Haki, Conqueror's Haki, has that one little pesky thing where it can blow away clouds. Oof, that's tough. I ain't gonna lie to you right now, it's kind of tough. So yeah, control the clouds in the area is nuts, but some guys just won't give a damn. They will, oh what? Oh, clouds? Haki, oh, whoa, oh, damn. That's tough, buddy. That's tough. So I ain't gonna lie to you, yes, it's gonna be tough. He's gonna have OD Haki for sure. But in terms of Conquerors, I don't see that being the case. He can have Conquerors, but I don't see him being OD in Conqueror's Haki. I don't. So Admiral, I think, is where he stops. He'll want more for sure. He's gonna be a pretty savage Admiral, but I don't see him being any higher than that, unfortunately. So that's how I see this what if. What if Enel was born on the Blue Sea? And this, I thought it was kind of fun. I ain't lying to you. This was kind of fun, rolling through this what if, the theories and the takes and the thoughts, spicy stuff. And if you agree that this was fun, let me know with a thumbs up. Of course, a comment in the comment section down below, and hit your boy up with that bell notification squad so you're up to date on when videos are uploaded. So on that note, I'm gonna catch you guys and gals on the flip side. Stay safe, be easy, have a nice one.
See you. Bye bye.